You know, the late 90s was a very strange time for games. There were a lot of experiments going on the hardware side and on the software side, but there is one accessory I've always wanted to take a look at and try out, and finally it came in. I had to import it from Japan, but the idea was so compelling that Nintendo decided to go back to it 10 years later with, well, some sort of result. And we're gonna take a look at this accessory here today. It's for the Nintendo 64, and well, when you have a controller like this, you know nothing's truly off the table.
In 2009, Nintendo was rolling along with the Wii and the DS, selling record numbers on the back of a more casual audience buying in. The rush of this newfound audience, along with the Wii's unique feature set, led Nintendo to trying some pretty weird ideas, one of which was announced at E3. During E3 2009, we had reveals like Wii Fit Plus, New Super Mario Bros., Wii Sports Resort, and Super Mario Galaxy 2. While people were busy fighting over the newly shown Metroid Other M, Nintendo showed off the next big immersion point for the Wii, the vitality sensor. The idea here is you would attach this plastic clamp to your finger, and the system would be able to read your pulse and quote-unquote other signals, providing information to the users about the body's inner world. Yeah, I don't think even Nintendo knew what this was ultimately going to be used for, and that became clear when just a year later they decided to sweep the project under the rug, and it wasn't until 2013 that it was acknowledged to be shelved, citing poor testing and development. All that said, we've actually had a vitality sensor that was introduced a decade earlier for the Nintendo 64. This was a controller expansion accessory from Seto that, when attached, would read your heart rate through a clip on your earlobe. Depending on how stressed you were, it would change the difficulty of the one game it worked with, Tetras 64.
And, well, here it is. This is the biosensor for the Nintendo 64. I mean, it's pretty straightforward when you take a look at it. We have this cartridge-like adapter for the bottom of the Nintendo 64 controller. You'd have things like the rumble pack, the transfer pack, memory cards go in here, but this would allow us to attach it and then, of course, run data back and forth to the system itself. And right here, we have this little clip. This side is sort of a piece of metal, looks like, and then on this side we have some sensors in here. And it sounds kind of weird getting something like this off of eBay and try it out, but there's one thing I've learned from eBay is you can trust everything on there, no questions asked. Just kidding, I'm gonna dunk this thing in alcohol. Okay, hopefully that jump cut was severe enough to convince you that I went through and cleaned it all of that, but we do have one game that this will work with, and that is Tetras 64. This whole thing, contraption, never released outside of Japan, so we are stuck using this game here. And as many people know, it's region locked somewhat. See, the region lock for Nintendo is just this plastic on the back here. So if you ever get a Nintendo 64 game and you don't feel like taking your system apart in order to remove kind of the plastic bottom part around where the cartridge will sit in, all you have to really do is take the back off, which means just pop these screws out. Just make sure you have a GameBit driver handy. I'll leave a link down below for an Amazon listing, the one that works. Go ahead, just pop the back off, and then this, just like this, without the back half, will sit right in your Nintendo 64. Okay, so I do have the bio adapter plugged in to the controller pin here. It's pretty flush for the most part, other than kind of this rounded piece here that's worked to fit into this cutout. But otherwise, it runs down to our little biosensor that has the text lined up purposely that way because it kind of wants you to dangle it off of your ear like an earring. Well, let's see, it's gonna clip just like that. Seems to be on there pretty good. I was worried that it would like fall off if I moved around too much, because I'm gonna have to try to get my heart rate up for this to hopefully have an effect. It just kind of feels like it wants to fall off. I guess it's on there. We'll see if it falls off or not. But we see Tetras, Giga Tetras, Bio Tetras, and Option. I want to go to Bio Tetras, and when I first turned this on, it did say sensor detected. So I guess we're good to go on that. Let's go into Bio Tetras, just one player, that's it. A-type, sure, level 0, I guess? And the idea with this, and oh, it actually can detect my heart. Okay, so see a little heart sensor down there kind of beating. Okay, so as you get more and more stressed, the idea is it's supposed to, I guess, just get harder or easier. I feel like it wants to try to knock you out as you get more and more anxious. Contrary to popular belief, by the way, I'm not the best Tetris player out there. Also, that block went through. I have definitely not played this version of Tetris, I'll tell you that. I played Tetris a lot on the Game Boy. I feel like. And then obviously on the Switch, because we had Tetras 99, and that was really fun because it was such a different take on the idea of Tetris. But like, as for kind of hanging out and playing Tetris all the time, it really wasn't something I was doing. But the core concept, I mean, it's still fun. Some of these blocks are shaped a bit weird. Like, they have that extra block on one side to make it asymmetrical for certain ones. So let me see. If I start really moving around, I wonder if it will work. Let me see. So if I just start like running in place, oh, look at that. Or is it just this? No, it looks like it's going up a bit. Maybe if I was like one of those fancy people who had like the wristwatch for tracking heartbeat, this would be a lot easier to compare. Okay, my heart rate is definitely going faster, but the bricks are going slower. Am I wrong? Is it supposed to go slower if your heart rate is higher?
Okay, let's talk about how all of this works with the difficulty in the game relative to your heart rate. When your heart rate starts to climb during gameplay and it detects certain levels are crossed, the game will throw these weird looking blocks at you in place of the more familiar shapes. The speed that the blocks fall doesn't really seem to be affected, just the variety of shapes that you will get. Also, the game seems to decide at the last minute if the shape is changed, leading to some surprises that can then cause more stress. If you have a really calm heart rate, however, you'll get the most basic shapes. Sometimes I was just getting a single square.
I guess you'd have to get really, really stressed for this thing to go too crazy. But I mean, who knows? Maybe you've been going at this for like an hour and you start to lose and you freak out a bit. I'm sure there's some intense Tetris matches going on out there somewhere. I will give it credit though. It tracked that in real time pretty well. Like it reacts pretty quick. Okay, there we go. And you know what? This did not fall off at all. Like I have to give it credit for that. I was positive this thing was gonna fall off. I mean, I was running really, really fast, well, in place, but I was running really, really hard. There's a lot of effort, okay? And it never came off. So in that sense, it actually works as intended. Obviously the gripe here would be the cable, because I mean, I guess you're used to sitting, one, close to your TV with in this generation, and two, you're generally gonna be keeping the controller near you with like bent elbows. Like you're not gonna be like this playing. The cable's still kind of in the way though. It's definitely noticeable.
As for how this works, well, a quick look into pulse sensors shows the use of infrared light detecting changes in blood flow as your heart beats. We can see the sensor has two spots, one that blasts infrared light and the other to measure the amount of light reflected back, all of which is processed and then sent back to the Nintendo 64 during Tetris to change difficulty in real time. Apparently, earlobes and fingertips are the best places to measure using this sort of method, but I'm not exactly an expert with how this technology works, so if you are more familiar with it, let me know in the comments. The biosensor was never released outside of Japan and was only ever compatible with Tetris 64, which is a shame. I like seeing these weird and wacky ideas for accessories bringing more immersion into games. The problem is they typically are seen as gimmicky and aren't taken seriously in the first place. Can you imagine if we got to a point where your aim, for example, could be affected in a game depending on your heart rate, or have an entire mechanic built around your stress levels in a horror game? Although this method does require you to clip something to your ear, so I understand there is a bit of an issue with convenience.
And that's gonna do it here for the biosensor on the Nintendo 64, with the one game that it works with, that being Tetris 64. An interesting idea, and I do wonder if this is what Nintendo had looked at when they were coming up with plans for that vitality sensor on the Wii, and exactly what games they would have used it with. I mean, you would have lost one of your fingers because it would have had the clip on it, so I'm thinking they were looking towards fitness or just like the casual sports games like a new Wii Sports that would have incorporated it. But kind of weird timeline that would have been where the vitality sensor came to market. But let me know what you guys think about this with the biosensor and use with Tetris 64. What Nintendo 64 game would you have liked to have seen this used with? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.